Hello, everybody. Welcome to the February 2022 episode of Amanda Interviews. I'm Amanda Trimpower, writer for Jesus Lovers Who Dig Dragons, Detectives, and Droids. I'm coming to you from incredibly snowy Ohio. We are here to connect your students with professionals in career, creative, and athletic outlets. Today, we're doing a creative one. If you have any questions, please submit them via the chat feature as we talk. I'm waiting for confirmation that Molly is here. Our guest today is Molly Farnsley, creator of a very long time running fantasy webcomic called Everpresent. Everpresent is about a young woman who is kidnapped on her wedding day, and she's replaced with a lookalike assassin who is tasked to eliminate her fiancé, the prince. The young woman pulls from newfound magic in order to save her kingdom. And we've got a few people joining. We are just waiting for Molly. I'm going to send her the invite now. And hopefully we don't have the tech issues we had during our practice. Thank you, everybody who hopped on. Yep, there she is. How are you doing, Molly? Uh-oh, I do not have my audio set up right, so I'm going to have you introduce yourself while I'm shuffling a little bit here.
That's fine.
All right, so
Yes.
go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so my name is Molly. I am a writer and an artist with my main project right now that it sounds like we'll be discussing today is my webcomic called Everpresent, which has been just so fun to do for the past 5+ years.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Sorry about my little audio problem there. Okay, so let's talk about Everpresent. I found your summary online, and I read it during the intro. But tell us all about it. What genre is it? What's the story about? Give us a picture.
Yeah, so the genre is definitely a fantasy story. The premise is the story of a young woman who is kidnapped on her wedding day and replaced with a lookalike assassin who's tasked to eliminate her fiancé, the prince. So she has to fight back in order to save him and the kingdom, which has just been a really fun ride to do and to keep writing.
That sounds so cool. What was some of the inspiration behind creating it? Why did you pick fantasy? Why did you pick that storyline?
Oh, I mean, I've always loved fantasy ever since I was little. I mean, I read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe with my family growing up. Lord of the Rings, of course, in junior high and high school. I've just always found it a medium where you can really explore a lot of really interesting morals. So maybe it's also like the Aesop's fables I read growing up and that. So like to me, fantasy just has this element of excitement and like newness and something always to explore. So I wanted to create my own world in that, definitely.
That's awesome. What are some of your favorite characters in your series? Can you tell us about them?
One? I don't think I can pick one. I mean, the main character, Selena, obviously I have a deep affection for her. And I think it's because I see myself in her quite deeply. And that was semi-intentional. She is a lot of the parts to me that I feel insecure about. So it's easy to write what you know.
Mm-hmm.
Another character that I actually really like that I don't think I've been able to get a lot of, limelight to as much is a character named Oliver Dessler. He's a side character who seems to have a chip on his shoulder against Selena, and as you go through the story, you see why. But he's been really fun to develop and fun to write, and so on and so forth.
I think one of the coolest things about doing creative projects where you get to create characters is you do get to kind of explore parts of yourself, parts of others.
Yes, definitely.
You get to kind of wrestle with your insecurities. You get to play out different things. Have you seen growth in Selena over the last 5 years that mirrors your growth in any way?
I would say, I mean, when I started the comic, here's a very, very simple example. Children were not on my radar. Kids having kids I wanted it to be on the radar. I just wasn't there yet. And then as as the story develops and book 2 came around, you realize that Selena is now a mother. And seeing her become a mother, I guess, was really exciting. And this is not news if you follow me online, but I am now a mother. I'm in process. It's a loading bar situation, mother. My baby due in May. But yeah, that's one simple way I've seen some correlations in growth, definitely.
That's so fun. Do you think that your take on Selena and her motherhood might change once your child has arrived?
I don't know. It might. The thing is, like, there might be some minor things here and there, but the story I've written is, how do I put this? Like, the outline has been written for years, so nothing major is going to change. No. Maybe some, like, little gestures I might draw differently depending on my interactions with my kids and so forth, you know. So here's an example for that too. Where the story is now, without spoilers to anybody who wants to start. Her husband Silas is being very comforting, emotionally and like physically comforting her. And I'm like, as I was drawing some of these, I'm like, why does this feel familiar? Why do I keep gravitating toward these scenes? And I realized that in the years that I've been married to my husband now, for a very long time, he has been a huge source of physical comfort to me with all the health issues I went through, and mental and emotional issues I went through. That just, it's something that was really special to me, and I realized it was coming through in the comic, and I didn't even realize it until I was drawing recently. I'm like, oh, well, once again, write what you know.
That's so special. I love that. That's wonderful.
Definitely.
Now, I did want to talk about the longevity here. You've been doing this for 5 years. Is that right?
It was 5 in August, and then I had to take a brief break in September for the pregnancy and some of the morning sickness I was having, and then some other health issues. But yes, so it'll be like 5 in a good amount.
And that's with an aggressive update schedule. It's weekly, is that right?
That is every week. It is a full color, multi-paneled, multi-character kind of situation. This is definitely the most time-taxing regular project I've ever done in my life, and I have a bachelor's degree, so it was tough. But yeah, it's definitely time-taxing. That is for sure.
Yeah, that's a big reason why I wanted to bring you on and introduce you to the students. And we kind of talked about this a little bit during our mic check, but there are so many people that have creative aspirations and even creative talent. But I think at least what I really want students to know is that the creative talent will only get you so far. And what you really have to have is that discipline and that perseverance.
Yeah.
And you're so good with that. So what I'd love to hear from your perspective, have there been times in the last 5 years where you were tempted to stop, where you felt like life was getting in the way? How did you handle that?
Every day. No, there's no joke. There's times that I just felt like Sunday afternoon, I'm beating my head against a wall trying to get the comic done on time. I've had to say no to a lot of things that I don't regret, but I do miss, or I was sad that I couldn't take part in. Yeah, it's hard. And there's times that I'm thinking, I wonder if I'm, giving myself a realistic update schedule. I mean, the fact that I update Mondays at midnight means my Sundays are hardly ever restful. And that's tricky, especially now, if, for example, I start having kids and then like we might have an event with my family or something, or in-laws. So like, it's something that we need to figure out, and it's something that I need to, I regularly struggle with, to be honest. Yeah, every day I struggle. Every time I even bring up my program, it's a labor of love, absolutely, but it's still a labor. It's not easy. I don't recommend this to beginners. Doing webcomics has to be one of the most time-taxing ways to tell a story ever, because where the story is taking place right now, it's been like, oh gosh, it's been like a week for like 2 years now. It's ridiculous. Like it covers a lot of time in the real world to get done. Way longer than, say, typically writing a novel would. I think it's more rewarding because I love visual storytelling, and I love what you can like put in there for, what do you call it, like subtle hints maybe to something else, or other kind of like color symbolism that you may not catch or be able to put in as subtly in a novel. I really love it. Like, I wouldn't do it any other way. I've had friends and like well-meaning people in my life tell me, oh, mate, Molly, this is so good. You should just do the webcomic as a novel. Like, I really like your writing style. And I'm like, thank you, but that would just take away so much of what the story is. To me, the story is very visual. So I don't regret it, but yeah, I question it like every day.
Well, I think that's so special when you have a storyteller who does have that extra layer of, I'm telling you a story with words, but I'm also telling you a story with pictures, and I'm being intentional about the very subtle choices I'm making, like you said, with color symbology or other things. That just, for the reader, or what noun do you use for people? Do you use reader? Okay. Yeah. For the reader who's paying attention, like, what a treat. You've just got layers and layers of meaning there.
Exactly.
And I think
I try to do anyway. Like, even if I can fit in like a little background detail here and there, like, oh, this character showed up forever ago. Look, they're showing up again. You know, that kind of thing. Sorry.
No, I think the other thing that students could really learn from you as far as the time thing goes is that we all have a limited amount of time. And when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to like 5 other things. So you better make sure that whatever it is you're saying yes to is worth that yes, and is worth missing out on the other things.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree with that.
So let's talk a bit about kind of the art and science of webcomic making in general.
Yes.
For total newbies, can you just kind of break down what is a webcomic?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Webcomic is very simply your typical comic book that you're going to find in the drugstore or the comic book store, except that instead of released in multiple pages, like, okay, here's a good example, like right here, multiple pages to be bought at once. Webcomics do it differently in that they're not typically printed, and they do 1 page at a time, usually, whether that's weekly, bi-weekly, every day. I did read a comic that updated every day but Sunday. She wasn't human, I think.
She probably didn't sleep much.
No, but yeah, that's the major difference. It is strictly mostly online. I do have print copies of my webcomic that I sell at Comic-Con and such. That's been really fun. But the whole point and the way they are published is not print, and it keeps costs down. It's really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to make sure I don't get ahead of myself here. When it comes to posting online, what sort of options do students have? Where can they do that?
Yeah, luckily there's tons of different options for webcomics these days. You have platforms and websites that are already there. You just need to make an account and then upload your pictures, and then all in order. So you have like Webtoons. You have a website called Tapas, Tapas. I personally really liked having my own website. I used one for a while for hosting site that no longer is available. And I luckily met a fantastic coder who coded my own website for me. And so now it's just its own place. It's not like I have to go through a different platform. It's my own platform. So to me, that has like a really nice polish, which is wonderful. So there's a lot of different methods, a lot of different options. You just have to kind of dig in and see what's there.
Sure. How about tools? What type of technology do you use?
So yeah, your typical person is going to be using like some version of Photoshop. Luckily, I found a let's call it like a discount version of Photoshop that I really like. When I bought it, it's not even the same name anymore. When I bought it, it was called Manga Studio 5. It was strictly designed for making comics. And like the way they set up paneling and word balloons, very easy, really nice. I don't even know what it's called today. It's by Smith Studios, I think,
Okay.
or something along those lines. The point is, there's tons of different options available, and some of them are free if you just want to kind of get your feet wet. Like, I believe Paint Tool Sai is one of them. What are a few others? There's even just like online versions you don't even have to download. The only thing that I would say is absolutely necessary for drawing is to have your own kind of drawing tablet, which is what I use. This tablet I got strictly from the manufacturer's website, so I know I didn't get the best deal, but that's fine. Is my Webcomic tablet. It doesn't.
Okay.
It's very, very simple. It's just your typical tablet and pen, and I mean it has served me so well. Oh gosh, I've been using it for like 6 years now because I was drawing before the comic too. And they have so many versions of that too. Some with screens in them, some that a little more or a little less portable, a little more portable. So yeah, there's so many different versions of those to check as well. Mine was about $100, give or take, which is quite cheap for a drawing tablet.
Yeah.
But I've gotten my money's worth out of this poor thing. I am literally drawing a hole in the first layer. You can see like a giant stuff mark hole. It's really sad. But yeah, when this thing goes, I kind of want to bronze it and put it on the wall. Like, no joke, I probably will do something and frame it.
That needs to be hung on the wall. That's a badge of honor.
Yeah, this pen, if you will, has drawn more things. I've drawn more with this than I think any other pen, like in my whole life. So yeah, I'm gonna memorialize it somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of other pens, do you ever freehand your illustrations before you digitize them?
It's funny you say that because I do something called thumbnailing, which is, I can show you an example. It's where you take the general sketch of what's going to be on the page, like what's going to be on what panel, what's going to be on what page. Let me go back and just at a glance, you can see the page that's currently up now. I mean, so there's no spoilers. So like, I have a brief, like tiny version of this. People are in stick figures. The lines are on the side and then notes underneath for myself, not to mention like a summary up top. And then my whole, I have like pretty much all of book 2 that way. And there's a lot to go through. Yeah, so it's fun. It's really, really fun. To me, that I do that on paper. I find that much more freeing. But yeah, then when I transition to the digital aspect of it, then I have a very clear vision in mind. It's not like I'm ever redoing panels or angles or characters. That is another thing that's tricky. You can't edit a webcomic like you do a novel. Absolutely not. While it hurts to like cut a paragraph or a scene, to do it with a webcomic, you'd be losing hours. And I mean like days of work, maybe even weeks. So to me, not to mention I have read webcomics that just fizzled out and stopped because they didn't know what to do. They didn't ever finish. They didn't ever come up with an ending. And I'm like, you now have all this wasted art. Like, what do you do? So that was my rule, that like if I started, I needed a beginning, middle, end, and like the outline is set, and I know what's going to happen, and I have it all planned out ahead of time. So we are going to finish. It's not going to like peter out. So yeah, that can be kind of scary.
I love that. I love the organization. I love the structure that it gives you, and I'm sure you've had room to adapt as you desired to. But I just love the structure because what a wonderful promise that is to your readers who have invested in you for 5 years, that the ship will dock at some point.
Yes. Well, of course, I never, like in a way, I never want it to end, but it's going to have to. So I'm going to make sure it ends well.
Right. Yeah. That is the best service we can do for our readers, is to tell the story well and then to end it well. I really respect that. Very nice. Can you tell us about, so you described the thumbnailing, but when you're ready to move on to the next stage and you're actually ready to flesh out the art, how do you decide what to include, and how do you decide how to arrange it on the page?
Yeah, that's also done in thumbnailing typically.
Okay.
I will, like each panel, I'll have a stick figure version of it. So it's like really simplified, but I'll know that, okay, I want the camera, if you will, to be from like the neck down or something, or I want it to be over this person's shoulder. There's been a few times even, like if I have characters around a table and I want to keep track of who's where, I'll do a sketch of like a top-down view of so-and-so is here and these two people are here. cameras here in panel 1, cameras here in panel 2, that way, like, it's really coherent, and I'm never like, oh crap, I accidentally switched places with these two people or something. You really can't think too much ahead when you're doing that kind of. I mean, you can, but it's wise to at least have a really good spatial understanding of what the scene's going to be and what it's going to look like. So that's what I do.
That's fascinating to me because, again, as a novelist, that's something I don't have to take into consideration. I mean, I have to know who's in the room, but I don't have to keep track of who's at the table and who's next to who spatially. That involves such another level of skill. That's awesome.
It's tough.
How about let's talk about length. You produce them weekly, at least pre-baby. We'll say that pre-baby. You produce them weekly.
Yeah.
How long from thumbnailing to pushing publish does it normally take for you to do a page?
I have never actually calculated, but I can say safely, I'd say 9 to 14 hours per week. Yeah, 14 is the really intense, tough one. I just finished one today, and there were a lot of panels, a lot of characters, like multiple characters per panel. I'm like, yeah, this one's gonna take a little longer. But it's definitely a part-time job. I kind of have to see it that way, like, because I enjoy it and I enjoy doing it, but I still have to give it the effort and the time as if it's a part-time job. So yeah, they take a long time.
Yeah, and
it stinks because people read it in like 5 seconds, which is how you're supposed to go. You're supposed to go in order, and and if you're really into the story, I'm assuming you're going to be going through them quickly. Yeah. But yeah, that's rough. I remember I don't know what it was. I'd given somebody the link to the comic, and I had enough that I thought, oh, this is going to take them a while. They came back 15 minutes later, like, oh, that was good. And I'm like, 15 minutes? That's all it took for you to get through how many years of work?
That was 5 years of my life. That is hilarious.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, it takes a lot of time.
That is a more brutal turnaround time than even writing a novel, because a novel, I mean, that could be a year of your life if you have all your crap together. But a person could power through that in like a weekend. And I used to think that was a really brutal turnaround, but 5 hours for 15 minutes is crazy.
Yeah.
I also love what you said about treating it like it's a part-time job. Because for any students watching, it's totally okay to do something just because you're passionate about it and it entertains you and it's a hobby. But if you want to approach something with some level of professionalism and seriousness, you do have to treat it like a part-time job.
You do.
And that goes back to the time thing that we said about, every time you say yes to this, you're saying no to all these other things.
Yeah. And it's been harder to say yes recently because of the morning sickness and just other things that have come up. January was going to be my like really buckle down and get work done, month. And then I got COVID, which knocked me out. And then I was in a really bad car accident, which I'm still actually technically recovering from.
Oh.
But yeah, so my car is totaled, but luckily I am not. So yeah, it was just, you know what? Okay. And then you just got to go with the flow. There's times when I tell myself when I'm drawing the page, it does not have to be the perfect page, just the next one.
Yeah.
You can't obsess over the details on minor things like that. That's something I've really tried to just move on and be okay with. And there's some pages I look back on and I'm like, oh yeah, I struggled on that, but it looks fine. Absolutely no one's going to notice. Honestly, no one is going to think, well, this one's way less quality than last one. If you're putting your heart into it and like you effort, but don't kill yourself over it, that's just how it's just going to work out fine.
Yeah.
It's going to work out fine.
Yeah, I agree with that. Perfectionism just kills progress. You cannot be a perfectionist. You can be a professional and you can try hard, but you cannot be a perfectionist.
No.
I think that actually segues well into just a piece of general life advice. You can give me your thoughts on this. One of the things that I'm learning as a creator who is also a parent and I have other adult responsibilities, your life comes in seasons. And there may be a season where you're not able to pursue the content creation that you're doing. You may not be able to pursue it in the same way that you have in the past, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that that will be permanent, but maybe this is just the season that God has you in. I know you just kind of recently went through that with the pregnancy. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, no, that was really hard for me because I still wanted to keep, I knew at some point I need a break. I assumed it would be when I had the baby. But honestly, like I said, the morning sickness hit so hard so fast, and this is all new for me. This is all first time for me, that I had to realize, like, no, my health really does come first, not because it's not just my health, it's the baby's health. So I had to really like come to terms with that and tell my readers, hey, I'm so sorry, I need a break. I don't know for how long, but I'm gonna need a break. And luckily my readers are the best. They're the best because they're so supportive. And whenever and there's been several times I had to skip a week or what have you, something came up. They're very understanding, which was really, really nice. So yeah, they were more than willing to be flexible about it, which was awesome. So yeah, that was tough, but I had to give myself grace and be okay with the fact that I wasn't going to be updating as regularly as I had. And while it was nice to have more time to recover and such, like, I still missed it. I've still really, really missed creating every week and seeing people's reactions and the story and knowing it wasn't moving forward. It's tough to see. It's tough to see characters you love stuck, like in pause, in limbo. In my world, it felt to me like they were, like in a way, all asleep. And I'm like, no, come on, wake up. We got to keep doing the story. That's what it felt like, at least.
Yeah, I could actually deeply relate to that at the moment.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how do you see your faith influencing your identity as a creator?
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest portion, I think to me, like, story is not just for entertainment. Storytelling also has an element of like morals involved too. Like I brought up earlier with like Aesop's fables in general. So to me, like, I don't necessarily need to write a story that is Christian. I do want to write a story that has Christian values, that brings up like, standing up for those who can't for themselves, and faithfulness to like friends, and honesty, and general just good conquers evil, even just to make it even more broad, kind of morals. So that to me is like such a big portion of why I do what I do. It's to tell a story that's going to move people and make people think. Yeah.
I think that's really cool. For people who are watching live, we do have a spot at the end for questions. So if you have any questions for Molly, feel free to put them in the chat. We're going to go to one last topic of questions. And then when we get through those, that's when we'll do live questions if we have any. So let's kind of transition directly into student advice. Let's say that you're sitting down for coffee or cup of cocoa if they don't drink coffee with a student who's interested in sequential storytelling, sequential art storytelling. What would be your advice to them? Is webcomics a good place to start?
I would say possibly. You don't necessarily have to be an artist to do a webcomic. I have seen webcomics where one person was the writer and one was the artist, and they worked in tandem. Heck, you can even just do stick figures. I've read some really good stick figure webcomics that tell really compelling stories.
Interesting.
Just know that it has another layer of complexity to it, and there's another layer of commitment to it that typical novel writing does not. So yeah, I would say for people who are just starting out, I would recommend doing like, for example, a 10 panel or 10-page story. Like, focus small. When I first started out, I did like little strips, and not even just a full page, of comics about my cats. And I knew I was going to do 10 of those. And then after that, I wanted to do full page, so I did a 5-page story that didn't have any words. You know, it was all black and white, so I kept it simple, just to dip my toes in the water. And then I went real hard and went 136 pages, all full color with Everpresent. So I just kind of, you know, jumped in after that. But yeah, I would definitely get your feet wet first and see, like, do you even enjoy visual storytelling in the comic style? You know, is that something you kind of enjoy? As a matter of fact, when I started doing thumbnailing at all for book one, I couldn't draw at all. Didn't have a tablet. Had no idea how to do any kind of. I wasn't drawing. Like, I didn't take any art classes for anatomy or actual like drawing. I did Photoshop, but that doesn't really count. I sat down and thought, like, I love telling stories and I love doing it in a comic sense because I had done pencil and paper, you know, cartoony stick figure, like, once again. So I thought, okay, I have the passion. I'm going to commit with what I can do and then figure out the rest. And I was like, sheesh, like 80 thumbnail pages in until I was like, all right, I need to buy a tablet. I'll get a tablet. My mother-in-law gave me this tablet for Christmas. Or was it my birthday? Actually, technically, it was supposed to be for Christmas, but I let her know that I really, really, really wanted it. So she gave it to me on my birthday instead, which is so sweet. So yeah, this is probably the most used gift I've ever like used in my life. But yeah, if just to get your feet wet, I would try smaller projects first to see if you enjoy it. And then honestly, I learned everything online and kind of taught myself. So nothing is kind of off limits when it comes to the age of the internet and teaching yourself how to do things. So
that's a great follow-up question. Are you a self-taught artist?
I am.
Okay, very cool. So it's entirely achievable with perseverance and YouTube.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm still constantly Googling. Today, I literally looked up how to draw. Oh, what was it? I can't remember. Like how to draw the like muscles on an arm to get it right. My feed is full of how to draw XYZ. And then I look up like reference photos. Reference photos are everything. And then just kind of visually copied what I saw and just file it away, and your brain keeps track of it all. So yeah, that's just kind of what I do.
How about, so like post creation, once the student has their project, whether it's a short or a long-term one, how did you go about growing your audience, and how can students grow theirs?
Yeah, so I have not done any kind of like paid advertising or anything like that. The main way I have advertised is through like word of mouth, sharing it with friends, occasionally doing like collaborations with other comic creators. You know, I've honestly kind of had that as in the back burner in my mind. My goal was not to like reach a lot of people and or make money off this. It was just to tell the story. So like I said, that is not really one of my goals, but I would like for it to be, and I would like to keep sharing it with more people. I did mention that I do go to Comic-Cons occasionally, so I would sell shorter print versions of the comic there, and business cards, of course. I do have business cards that I give out to like comic book stores and what have you. There's some local comic shops around here that are like usually more than willing to work with local artists. So that's one way to work too. But yeah, it's typically just been word of mouth right now.
That's not anything to sneeze at. You get a nice rabid fan base with word of mouth, and they'll take care of the rest for you.
And like, this is just me. I would prefer to have a smaller group of people who really enjoy it, which I do right now, and which is just wonderful to see, and the same people coming back week after week to see what happens next, opposed to say like a huge group that's like, that's all right. You know, no, I'd much prefer the people who are passionate to see what happens.
Yeah, there's greater intimacy in the relationship there for sure.
I think so, definitely.
How about burnout? We kind of touched on like perseverance and seasons, but maybe some advice about how to get out of burnout.
Like physically get up and away from your computer. That's number one. And stay off your phone. For heaven's sake, stay off the phone. I attempt to take my creative juices and apply them to something else for a little bit. So that might be a drawn commission that I'm working on, or it might be literally just sketching on paper and with pencil because I need to be away from the screen. So I've learned that not drawing doesn't seem to fix that. It in a way almost like makes it worse because it's like my tank was kind of running empty, and in order to fill it, in that regard, I had to like prime the pump in other ways. So that's what I do. And I was even actually working on another commission that I just took up real suddenly. Luckily, it's a small one, but like right before we started. So yeah, that's one way that I do it. And then if all else fails, go outside, go for a walk.
Yes, absolutely.
That's a good across the board kind of. Even if it's cold, just put on boots and go.
Go outside, drink some water, go to the bathroom. All right, looks like we've got 2 live questions. Thank you very much, guys. All right, we'll start with the top one. Coming up with main characters can be a challenge, but what about coming up with background characters? How do you achieve that?
Background characters usually are created by me if there is a need that needs to be filled for a role. For example, the character Oliver Destelaire, the lieutenant I brought up earlier, he didn't exist until I was writing the story and Selena got to the gate and I'm like, okay, there needs to be someone who's not going to let her in or like give her a hard time. And I'm like, all right, this guy just suddenly exists. And he was not supposed to be like an interesting character or a character who I would delve into. Like that was going to be his bit, and that's all he was really going to do. And then he started to develop more over time as I realized there were other needs that needed to be filled in the story. So for me, it was realizing there was some kind of need that had to be filled, or perhaps a scene in which the main character needs to relay information to someone or work off someone else. You know, it didn't even have to be another human. It could be like a dog or someone they're talking to. Like it really doesn't have to be this really deep fleshed out character, you know. There's even there's a character, like a name I've been using if I just need, oh, hey, I need to leave. I need to go talk to so-and-so. Like, I've just been bringing that name up. And I'm like, is this the same guy? Like, same mysterious guy who's in the background? I don't even know who he is. But yeah, that's typically what I do. And then give it time, and they eventually kind of develop a personality of their own. And if you want to strictly dive into their characters more, I usually keep a list of interview questions that I ask like to the character. And it's almost like you have them answer in character back. That's a really good way. It'll say like, what are your motivations? What do you fear? What's your deepest, darkest secret? You know, if you could go anywhere in the world, where would it be? Like things like that. It was an assignment in college and I just loved it so much I kept it.
Yeah.
And whenever I need to flesh out a character, I always use those. In fact, I have them saved. Yep. I have all of them saved from book 2. So like several questions unanswered. But I love it. I love interview questions, and I love interviewing, obviously. Yeah. So like to me it was really fun. So if anybody wants or needs those, I'd be happy to share them. They are an invaluable resource to me when creating a new character, side or main or otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's awesome. I use character interview questions too. Dialogue has always been my favorite part of writing. And when I was a teen, I used to run dialogue in my head, but it wouldn't stay in my head. It would come out loud like I was speaking the line, but I didn't know I was doing it. And so sometimes I would get in trouble with my parents because I'd be acting really cranky. And they're like, "What's up with you?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry. I'm working on
somebody else."
The character's cranky. It's
sounds terrible. Yeah, exactly. Nope, been there.
All right, we've got another question. When you were writing the characters, did any of them start off different than their current personality? So did they change? That's fun.
Did they change? I mean, I would definitely say not too much. Minor things. I mean, this isn't almost fair to bring up, but the very first iteration of the comic ever, gosh, there was like, characters were missing, the story didn't make sense, there was another doppelganger, It was a mess. It was a mess. It was a mess. So like, I don't even know if that compares, but it was a really good first start.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's more like it's almost like when you get to know someone at first and you think you know them, and then you get to know them more and more and more, and it's like, oh, you're actually more like this, and you have depth here. It's not that my first impression was wrong, it was just really shallow. That might be the better way to describe it. I'm trying to think, though. Yeah, not majorly. Not majorly. I mean, the main villain has become like much more of a horrible lady as we go on. I'm like, wow, you're the worst person in the world. I guess if that counts.
That's so cool though. Like a villain that has depth. That's a special treat.
Yeah, no, to me, like main characters are cool, but if you don't have a villain you're scared of, or at least are like intrigued by, what's the point? What's the point?
Yeah, what's the point? All right, I love it. Well, you have an exciting update for people.
Oh yeah. So the comic was on hiatus, and has been on hiatus since like late September, which is like way so long ago. But luckily, as of tonight at midnight, technically Eastern Standard Time, I will be updating the comic again. So there will be a new page tonight, which I'm so excited for. It's just been it's been so hard to leave this like hanging in the balance. So yes, the hiatus is going to end tonight. So Monday midnight on what is today?
Today's the 4th, I think. Yeah. Oh, 6th. I'm 2 days behind.
7th. The 7th. I will be posting it on my website, and then notifications on all my social media, Twitter, the Facebook group, Discord, so on and so forth. So
awesome.
I'm
well,
really happy about that.
I'm sure your fan base is so excited if they've
been really
already.
Responsive. Yeah.
Well, that is awesome. Many congratulations to you.
Thank you.
It's so impressive to stay with something as long as you have, but then to also do the mature and wise thing and let yourself take a break, but then come back to it too. I think the other thing that I really want students interested in creative pursuits to know is that even if you suffer a setback or you have to take a break or whatever it is, you don't have to let that defeat you. You can come back.
Exactly. This is not the first time I had to take a break. There've been several with my health issues really like going up and down. So yeah, like you have to realize that you're still human, that you're gonna need breaks. And luckily, like I said, my readers understand that. And they've been really, really supportive. But yeah, like in the end, you matter more than the story does. And real life, issues and health matter more than what you can create.
Yeah.
In the end.
And you'll be a better creator if you
Totally.
make sure that you're not burning yourself out.
That's true. Very true.
All right. Well, any final words of wisdom or inspiration that you would want to give to the students?
I can pass on a piece of information that really encouraged me when I was kind of first starting the comic and feeling that like strain. It was an interview I heard on the radio with people who have lived to 100 years plus. I think they're called like centenarians.
Yeah, something like that.
And they asked them, what's your biggest regret? And their answer, pretty much across the board, was that I didn't follow my dream. That I was in my 20s and my 30s and I didn't follow my dream. I didn't pursue that one thing I really wanted to do. And I was like, well, I'm pursuing my dream. And I know that in my heart of hearts, like when it's all said and done and I've lived my life and I've raised kids and hopefully a lot of grandkids and what have you, I'll look back and be like, yeah, I did that. And I didn't let things stop me, and I pursued my dream and I made it happen and I made it a reality. And the webcomic's gonna like live on longer than I will, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, it sounds like corny, but know that people who lived 100 years are still like saying like, yeah, pursue your dreams. Like if you can and make it happen, go for it. It takes a lot of hard work. It is not just a feelings thing. You got to put what did somebody say? You have to put your backbone where your wishbone is. Or something along those lines. And I was like, yeah, there's something to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my word of advice.
I love that. And I think that's so special because if you do that, you're leaving behind two gifts for people. You're leaving the thing that you created, which is just really cool, but you're
Mhm.
also leaving behind for your children or your grandchildren
Yeah.
or just people who are watching, you're leaving behind the legacy of you want something, you go after it. You can do
Yeah.
this. It takes work. You have to be
Mhm.
driven, but you can stand up and you can go do this if you put your backbone where your wishbone
Yes,
is.
exactly. So true.
Well, I love that. Where can people find you to find
Yes.
your work?
So the webcomic is available on its website, which is everpresentcomic.com. No dashes or periods or anything. And then if you ever want to follow my social media, where I do update and notifications and such of the comic or just general, life stuff, my Twitter handle is living for the lamb. So that's living without the G, and then the number 4, and then the lamb. There's also a Discord server that's available, a Facebook page. You can find these also on my Everpresent website. There's like a link in the lower upper right hand corner that indicates all the links and all the ways to get in contact. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to connect.
Awesome. I will have a blog post on my site that will be the show
Great.
notes for this,
Okay.
which will have a basic outline with some timestamps and then also some links back to your places. So people who are listening who don't already know how to find you, don't worry about writing it all down, because all you have to do is go to the show notes. That is going to be at amandatrumpower.com.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Molly. It was super
Oh,
fun to
thank you, Hannah.
connect. For those who don't know, Molly and I share a very good friend for about 10
Yes.
years. So we have heard
I think she's
secondhand.
watching right now.
I think she is watching. Hi, Alex.
Hi.
We have gone around you and we have now met.
Yeah, virtually, but that counts.
Virtually,
That totally counts.
yes. So for a decade, I have been hearing nothing but wonderful things about Molly. So it was just a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
If you're watching and you're a student or you have a student and you enjoyed this interview, I do these about once a month. So if you sign up for my homeschool newsletter on amandatrumpower.com, I need water. You'll get an email every time we do these. We do these about once a month. I have book news that I'm sharing with people because I'm stupid excited. After months and months of work, I am holding in my hands the first book of my mystery chapter book series for kids about 7 to 12. The series is called Collar Cases. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I'm working my butt off for my big May launch with the first 3 books. But book 1 is done and it is soft launched. And if you want to find it, all you have to do is go to collarcases.com and you will see. Thank you. I am just so excited. There's an audiobook, there's a paperback.
Wow.
I'm just over the moon. It's so cool.
So cool.
So thank you so much, Molly. It was a joy to talk to you.
Thank you.
I wish you all the best with the rest of your transition into motherhood and
Thank you.
figuring out how to make those two things work together.
It's gonna be a juggle, and I will ask my readers to be patient again once I figure it out. But yes,
you can do it. It's hard, but you can do it.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Well, have a good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.